Hello, my name is Michael Whalen, and it's my pleasure to be here to talk to you guys today. I'm very happy that you're here for us to have a conversation about how to create music soundtracks for your productions. And I really want to thank you for taking time out in the middle of your busy schedule to be here. I especially want to thank the very nice people at Voice 123 for the opportunity to talk to you. Today we're going to talk about how to use music in your projects. What's a project? Well, your project can range from doing music and production for a phone system to doing a corporate presentation, a radio or TV advertisement, a documentary, even a feature film. Everything we're going to talk about today applies to any kind of production, under any budget, under any circumstance. Music can make or break your project. Having great music can set the tone and focus people's attention on the message that you want them to hear. Whether you're choosing music from a music library, licensing a piece from a recording artist, composer, or songwriter, no matter what kind of production you're working on, the creative process is similar. So we're going to talk about some steps that you can follow, and we're going to create some questions that you can ask yourself that's going to keep you on track with how you are making and producing your work. And at the end of my presentation, I'm going to announce the release of my very first ever royalty-free music library. I think once you have a chance to check it out, this CD will become an essential part of how you create and produce your projects. Because you're here today, I know that you're someone who is a professional. However, not even the most successful professionals in our industry have access to the best music. But today, with the release of my royalty-free music library CD, that will change for a select number of people who act quickly and purchase this terrific collection of award-winning music. And then after my presentation, I'm going to answer a couple of your questions. And you can change the slide. Before I start, I wanted to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm 41 years old, and I've been working as a professional composer, a sound designer, a music producer, a songwriter, and music supervisor for 21 years. I live and work in New York City, and I won an Emmy-award in 1997, and I was nominated again in 2006. People ask me all the time, what have I heard your stuff? Yeah. I've done thousands of projects for film, television, advertising, podcasts, in-store promotions, whatever you can think of. The stuff you probably have heard the most is I've done music for The Oprah Winfrey Show. I've done music for Good Morning America, As the World Turns, Martha Stewart, Inside Edition. I have about 12 themes on television right now for different people, IDs, HBO, things on PBS. I've also done music for hundreds of documentary and even for a few feature films. And one documentary that I have coming out on April 15th of this year is called America at a Crossroads, and is the biggest series produced for public television in history, and it's really cool. And if you have a minute, you should definitely check it out. I've also created music for many corporate clients as well, and I know people on Voice 123, they do a lot of corporate stuff, so I've also done corporate work for Citigroup, Pfizer, Anderson Home Products, and many other people as well. I'm a recording artist. I've done 21 CDs of my own music for a variety of labels. I'm a songwriter and a producer, and I've produced many, many different people. Okay, you can change the slide. Let's get started. When working with music, you need to think about what it is you're trying to do. Well, I know that sounds obvious, but you really need to be intentional about it. Finding the right music is a combination of preparation, creativity, and careful listening. If you're finding music for a film, a commercial, a documentary, podcast, or a radio program, here are some things for you to think about and some really important questions to ask yourself. And you can change the slide. Okay, so the first question is, what is the length of the program you're working on? The second thing is, whom is the audience for this program? The third question is, what is the schedule for completing the soundtrack? The fourth thing is, what is the budget for doing the soundtrack? And the fifth question would be, what is the approval process for the program before it's complete? Okay, go ahead and change the slide. Okay, so let's go through this list one at a time. And so the first question is, what is the length of the program you're working on? Many people just starting to work with music for any kind of project make assumptions like 30 seconds is short and an hour is long. This is simply not true. Know your program and what the intention is. The wrong music can make 30 seconds seem like an hour. Believe me, really. Therefore, knowing whether it's a 30-second advertisement, a 2-minute telephone announcement, or even a 1-hour documentary can tell you many things. It can tell you that you could probably use one piece of music for the ad, and you might need dozens of pieces of music for the 1-hour show that you're working on. Sitting down and spotting the show or ad is very important. Spotting is the process of going through the show and making notes on where you and or the director and producer want music to come in and where you want it to end. These individual pieces of music are called cues. Now, the word cues is, connected mostly with television and film projects, and some film projects I've been involved with have hundreds of cues in them, literally. If you do a great job spotting and understanding the flow of the project you need music for, finding that music or asking someone to create it will be a much easier process, believe me. So if we have just discussed, length can tell you what the dramatic arc of a project is. So in other words, where does the program reach its high point? Does it have more than one high point? Many advertisements, for example, like to have a build. Maybe they start small and then they end big on the product sections, or there's a place where you really want it to be the most intense, even though they're only 30 seconds long. So, having an emotional high point isn't really about length. So along with looking at the picture and following the script, the length will give you the emotional arc, and it will assist you in determining how the build in the music could go. So you might ask yourself, what if I'm working on something that has no emotional high point on purpose? Well, there are some things like announcements that are used on kiosks. When you go to a store and there's like a kiosk thing and it goes just round and round and round. Phone announcements, computer games, maybe some sorts of, company or corporate presentations, and some types of interactive products that need to be on a loop or need to feed seamlessly no matter where the user decides to change tracks. Even in this case, there is a flow and an arc to your project. And from my experience, I can tell you that even when you think there is no dramatic high point, there can be a way to move things along even if a listener must hear the program more than once. So like if they're on hold and they hear like a 5-minute program more than once, there's a way to keep the interest and excitement going. Very often, where you might need an emotional high point does not exactly coincide with your picture or script. Think about finding a high point in the music at a place where your picture and script is not. So said differently, the right music should be giving your picture space, and your picture should be letting the music breathe underneath it. This is crucial. You'll find that the wrong music crowding the picture and not giving your script the room to be heard and understood is a disaster. Sometimes this can be fixed by adjusting the volume of the music in the mix. However, the best music wraps around a production in such a way where it fits organically and does not require a lot of fiddling around when you do your final mix. Go ahead and change the slide. So let's go to the next item on our list. Who is the audience for this program? Whom the program is designed for is also very, very important. Knowing who your audience is a function of how well you understand the intention of the project, what community or target group it wants to appeal to, and what their likes or dislikes are, and what they expect. So let me say that last thing again. Knowing who your audience is a function of what they expect. For a children's program, you will probably make a different musical choice than if you're going to be doing music for a corporate film or a training video. Going with or against people's expectations is a very important part of choosing or creating music. For example, you might find yourself needing to choose music before any voice copy is written and anything else is done. It is here where knowing the intention of your project and your audience is the most crucial. Starting from nothing but the intention can be really fun. However, again, understand the audience and ask questions. When I wrote the theme for Good Morning America, which is the music you hear in the background right now, ABC gave me 3 words: memorable, anthem, and something that people would want to hear over and over again. There was no graphic, there was no length, there was no script, nothing. Absolutely nothing. I just tried to imagine millions of people waking up to this music and being the engine that said good morning to them. You can really make this a great day. I mean, seriously. And once I had that in my mind, the melody flowed and the energy was there. All I had was really the intention of the music and a picture in my mind for whom this music was for. That's all I had. And I competed against 14 other composers, and they gave me the job. That said, using cliches to assume what people want or expect is potentially disastrous. Use common sense and ask questions of the people you're doing your work with, your colleagues, your clients, and even your audience, in helping you to see what it is they expect from the production that you're making. So armed with this information, you can make some decisions about musical style and direction. You can set your project apart from the rest in the first few seconds by establishing music that creates an atmosphere where people are engaged, entertained, and listening to what you want them to hear. This is the power of music. You can change the context of your program from drab and boring to new, innovative, and cutting edge. The interesting part is that it's not the music itself that's cutting edge. It's how you use the music that makes people sit up and listen. So if you can do that, then your project's going to be successful. It's just as simple as that. Let me take a moment here and state the obvious. I'm not saying that if you put more music in your project, it will be better. I am saying that once you determine you need music, choose music that works. So here's another example from my own work. I worked on a corporate piece for Pfizer for a huge live presentation that they were doing. And we talked about the role of the music, and it was a multi-hour program. But we decided that the music that I was going to write was only going to be a couple of minutes long out of that whole time. And at first I was like, this is kind of weird. You sure you guys don't need more music than that? And, I did the music, and they had the presentation, and I heard that the show went over great. The music was a big hit because they used a little bit of the music at the beginning and then they used most of it at the end. And, what I really got from that was you don't need to fill things up with music. They really were happy with what they got. It did exactly what they wanted it to do. It highlighted what they needed. So it's not that more is better. It's just, it's just do what works. That's simple. So let me just be clear. Don't fill things up with music. Spot things carefully, have discussions with the people you're working with, and pick the right music that's really going to make your project great. Go ahead and change the slide. So let's go to the next item. What's the schedule for completing the soundtrack? So in my own work, I've had up to 6 months to score a 1-hour television show, and by another client, I was given 48 hours to compose and deliver a score for a 2-hour film. No joke. So we all know how fast the world works and that speed is no longer an attribute that sets you apart. Having things done quickly in a first-class way is taken for granted by clients. So you can see that knowing the schedule in some ways makes some choices for you. However, speed is no excuse for doing things halfway. So if you're producing the project yourself, you need to know how your equipment works. I know that sounds obvious, but you need to know how it works under fire, more importantly. Your stuff needs to be in good repair. You need to know where all your music is. Like if you're using a music library, do you know where the tracks are? Do you have them loaded into your editing and mixing software? If you're going to have people help you, do you have relationships with composers, with music supervisors, maybe an audio engineer who can work with you on the time frame that you have either created or been given? Being prepared is the key. I'll say that again. Being prepared is the key. What sets successful music people apart is not speed, but rather value, exceptional service, and communication. Everyone's got their own way of doing their work. Schedules, structures, formulas. I can honestly say that I have no formula for doing my work. I just don't. I listen carefully to my clients, and I create a structure newly on every single job. Doing this keeps me fresh, it keeps the ideas flowing, and it also keeps me unattached to the idea that I must make sure that I have to create music my way. Struggling with the creative process, the schedule, and now the fact that I must do things my way is a potential disaster. I suggest that you stay loose when you're doing your projects, and that you keep listening to your clients, and if you do that, you're going to manage those tight schedules with ease, really. Go ahead and change the slide. Okay, now on to money. What's the budget for doing your soundtrack? People ask me all the time what my fees are for doing one job versus another. I say, well, it ranges from getting nothing to asking for and receiving a lot of money. Not being glib, really. Frankly, creating a budget for music is not an exact science. Honestly, if you're not in the music business, the music budget is usually the last thing you think about. Or maybe you think about music only if you have a few $100s left over, or a friend, who plays a guitar in a wedding band on weekends. Having this kind of attitude will not set your work apart. It really comes back to the very first thing that we discussed. What's the intention of your project? Do you have a music library in hand that you can work with? Do you have a composer who can do the music for the budget that you've set aside? Music, like many other things in the world, is a world where you get what you pay for. There are many sources in the world purporting to have free music. Ask yourself, why is this music free? Also, there are some people who think that by throwing some music loops into a computer, they can handle whatever's needed for whatever it is they're doing. I think that technology is great. It's, everyone has it at their fingertips. However, think about whether throwing a track together is the kind of quality you want to be creating and putting your name on. If you can't be responsible for great work, then why are you doing it at all? Music makes a difference and sets a tone for your production. If I can leave you with one thing today, it would be that music is not an afterthought. It makes a difference if you choose to put a tinny little drum loop in your show versus a track that's beautifully produced. Interestingly, this choice has little to do with money and more about whether people care about the overall quality of what they produce. Go ahead and change the slide. So in creating a music budget, there are a number of factors that you could consider. The first is, what kind of job is it? Is it an ad? Is it a TV show? Is it a podcast, a radio program? What is it? Like, what are you working on? The second thing is, how long is the program? The price is going to be affected versus 30 seconds versus an hour. Now, the irony, of course, is that I get paid for ads, a 30-second ad, more than some TV shows that I work on. That's going to be a function of what your client is prepared to pay. How much music will there be? Will it be continuous, or will there be breaks? Where will the program be played? Television, internet, video, film? That is a big factor. Are you going to use newly composed music or a music library? If you want composed music, will you be hiring live musicians? This is a huge factor in what things cost. It can double the whatever budget you have, depending on how many musicians and what you're using them for. And finally, are you going to hire someone to help mix or edit your music if you can't do it yourself? So when you think about it, the budget makes a number of creative decisions for you right from the start. If you're doing a corporate project and you have $200, for example, total for music, calling a top composer is probably not an option. Now, you could call a composer who'll do the work for $200, or you could use a music library. With a composer, you'll have to think about the quality that they produce and if the person you hire is reliable. If you use a music library, you must think about whether you can make the track work as is, or will you have to edit the track? Can you do this work yourself? The most significant guideline in thinking about creating a music budget is to be honest and fair. Now, again, I know that sounds obvious. If you choose to have very little money on hand, you might find that you have limited choices and that your project will not come out as you intended. So does this mean that you must pay big money to get a big sound? No, not at all. In fact, if you're clever, you could use a combination of things to solve your creative issues. For example, you could use a combination of library music, music editing, and then you could even insert some new music or sound design in the same project. You could offer a composer a back-end royalty on video sales or rights if you do not have the money to pay them up front. You could shop for the best music libraries and make a one-time blanket license fee so you could use anything on the library without any future payments. There are no rules about how to create a great soundtrack. Money can either be the thing that opens a Pandora's box of creative ideas or closes it. Go ahead and change the slide. The last thing on our list is, what is the approval process for your project? Now, if you are the final or only approval before your production goes out, okay, great. But that's also kind of good and bad. Now, if you have a client or a colleague that you need to be in communication with before your production is final, there are some things for you to be thinking about as you do the music. Now, if you're doing the production all by yourself, I strongly suggest having some other pairs of ears listen and evaluate the show, especially the music. Technology is really great. However, I think the fact that so many people are doing their work alone is cutting them off from interacting and getting creative feedback for their work. So just because you think the music that you've chosen is great, it doesn't mean that your spot is going to go over the way you intended it. It is very easy for people to become attached to their personal choices, and they cannot hear what the rest of the world hears when the program is playing. This brings me to a crucial point. Creating music soundtracks is not about using your taste in music. So let me repeat that said another way. If you love heavy metal music, your love of the group Metallica or Van Halen makes very little difference if you're creating a video for a nursing home or a relaxation project. In fact, it is one's personal taste in music that gets people in serious trouble when it comes time to deliver a project for approval. Seriously. I have written hundreds of hours of music, but only a small fraction of this music represents my taste in music. In fact, most of the music I have created has only to do with what the program needed at the time. My own taste was pushed out of the way. So again, I come back to the concept of the intention. What is the intention of the program? And I request that this single factor become the central question in all of your thinking about how to use music. It is by looking honestly and deeply at intention, whether your personal taste in music is standing in the way of doing what the project and probably your client needs you to do or not. Another factor that really gets in the way is choosing music because it's cool or trendy. Today's trend is tomorrow's really bad idea. Intention will help inform the style of the piece. However, it is how it is used that will make the difference on whether it's effective or not. Context is crucial when it comes to whether music is effective or not. Many people just starting out concentrate on style. So I ask you to look beyond style when choosing music. It's difficult because we bring so much of our own past and personality to our music choices. However, in choosing music for a project, our own taste must take a back seat to the needs of the production and the intention of the project as a whole. So no matter what your approval process is, by keeping the intention of the project in your focus and how the music addresses this, you're going to be in good shape. The intention can actually help you shape all of your answers to all the questions about audience, schedule, budget, all of that. If the intention is to be dramatic or grand, then how does this affect your decisions about budget and schedule? Does it make any difference? The choices are yours. However, I'm committed to creating great music and being a factor in increasing the value of the finished program that I'm working on. Therefore, music is an essential ingredient in how your productions are perceived. Now, I know you care very deeply about the quality of your productions. I know this because you're participating on today's webinar. I hope this discussion has given you some food for thought and has been of value to you. We're now going to do a short question and answer period. However, before we do that, I wanted to tell you about my brand new royalty-free music library, the Music Toolbox, Volume 1. I am so excited to announce that I've created my first CD of royalty-free music available to a limited group of professionals who want to get the very best music at a more than affordable price. You can use this music for most anything. Look at the terms of use without any further license payments ever. The Music Toolbox Volume 1 is the essential music library for any serious professional. You get 62 instrumental tracks that run from symphony orchestra tracks to pop to rock, hip-hop, jazz, ambient music. Each track is formatted to a broadcast time format, and the liner notes include style and descriptions of each piece. You will also get 2 sound design pieces created especially for this collection. There will be a limited number of CDs sold, and each will be numbered by me. Mix, edit, and transform your audio and video productions into award winners with some of the most dynamic and powerful music available anywhere. The CD costs $350 plus $6 shipping and handling inside the United States and $10 for shipping and handling outside of the United States. However, there's a very special discounted price for the first 100 CDs sold of 20%. That makes the cost of the CD just $280. The CD is available from the Resource Center at voice123.com. Check out the little audio promo that I did, and then buy the CD. You can use a credit card or a PayPal account, and the disc will be shipped within 21 business days. The Music Toolbox is the essential music library for all of your productions. Now I'm going to spend a couple of minutes answering your questions. Dear Michael, thanks for a great webinar. What's ducking? And by the way, ducking is spelled D-U-C-K-I-N-G. Ducking is the process of having a piece of music in a mix, and you're moving it kind of up and down extremely. It's basically it's moving the music out of the way of what it is you're working on in a way that I never do. Basically, it's a piece of music that probably doesn't work, and you're kind of forcing it to work by either increasing or decreasing its volume extremely, either around the voice or sound effects or dialogue or whatever it is you're working on. And so you have to kind of duck it up and down and up and down and ride it up and down a lot to make it work. And, and as I was saying, in my presentation, the best music is music that kind of organically fits. That's not to say that it doesn't need to be mixed at all, but it certainly doesn't need to be ducked. What happens in very formatted productions like I don't know, some sorts of corporate presentations, having music up for just a moment and having it come down again, that's one thing. But ducking is really the process of really moving the music in a very kind of non-organic way. Not good. Pick music that really works, flows well. It's non-intrusive, but it's doing what it needs to be done, and and it's really going to make your life easy when it comes to mixing. That's the best kind of music. Okay, the next question is, do you think it's a good idea to use music for voiceover auditions? And because this is Voice 123, I know this is a big question for everybody. Yeah, I think that, I've listened to lots of voiceover audition tapes, and I think, talking to clients about it, yeah, if you want to put a piece of music under, a voice audition, yeah, I think it helps, because even if the client ends up not using music in whatever it is they're working on, I think it does open up a thing that says, hey, well, this person's very versatile, this person's voice cuts through well, and I think it also does bring a whole other level of production to your auditions, because some people just sort of throw an audition down and it sounds kind of crappy and whatever. It definitely tells the client that you got your eye on the ball. So yes, I would definitely recommend doing that. The last question I'm going to answer is, what's it like working for Oprah? I've never met her, and the people at Harpo are incredibly nice, and it's great. I think one of the things that I keep stressing in my presentation, and I talk a lot to students and people who ask me about my career. The most important thing is to have a great line of communication with your clients, and I think whether it's Oprah or whomever, having the ability to communicate with whomever it is you're working on is really the ticket to you being successful or not. There are a lot of musicians in the world. There are a lot of people who create terrific music. And I think one of the things that sets me apart is my ability and my desire to really be in communication with the people that I work with. And if I can impart one thing onto you, whether you're a voice talent or you're a producer or you're somebody who wants to get involved with music, that's the thing that's really going to set you apart. It's not going to be the piece of gear. It's not going to be the thing that really, that you have to spend $10,000 on. It's going to be, do the people that you're working with have a sense that you're listening to them? Are you really in communication with them, and are you really out to solve their problem? And if you can be that person, then you're on your way. I just want to thank Voice 123 again for the opportunity to do this and talk to you guys today. And if you have a minute, go by the Resource Center at voice123.com. Check out the Music Toolbox Volume 1. This track's on it. I think it'll help you a lot in your productions. And thanks for hanging out with me today.